You are listening to a podcast by the Little School of Happiness. My name is Sandra Hayes and I'm your host. Here you will find episodes on all the Vedic teachings like yoga, Ayurveda and Vedic astrology. For more information about me and my offerings, please go to sandrahayes.eu, or if you're in Germany, sandrahayes.de. Hi everyone, I hope you are all doing wonderfully well today on this beautiful Ashwini moon day. Today it's just me by myself, and I am using the time to talk to you a little bit about the Nakshatras. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while. Because what I think is really, really interesting in Vedic astrology, there's many things that are really interesting. But for one, there is the beautiful, there are the beautiful constellations of the moon. So we all know, we're all familiar with the solar constellations, so where the sun is traveling through, or seems to be traveling through, the band of constellations that we all know as the 12 zodiac signs. But in Vedic astrology, there is also the lunar constellations or lunar mansions, which is, the band on the sky where the moon travels through. And these are stars that are far away, and there are 27 of them. And these 27 Nakshatras, as they are called, segment is roughly 13 degrees and 20 minutes wide. So this is the moon's daily movement, because the moon takes about 27 and a third or so days to orbit the Earth. And so that means that the moon is literally about 1 day in one nakshatra. There is a really beautiful story connected to that as well. And that's actually the other beautiful thing that I love so much about Vedic astrology, is the mythology. Because we all know that our mind, our unconscious mind, works in symbols and archetypes much more than in logic. This is, the matrix of Prakriti, of the divine feminine nature, and that is dreamlike, that is symbolic. And we understand things deep in our unconscious mind as images and pictures, and that's why all the Vedic scriptures, the old scriptures, are told so beautifully in stories or in poems or even music. And this is so that we can understand these things on a really deep soul level and not just on the surface of the logical mind. So the story of the moon and the 27 nakshatras is a beautiful one. In Vedic mythology, all the grahas, all the planets, are masculine. And that is not for any sexist reason, but it is purely because the masculine force, the divine masculine, is the active parts of our psyche. And so all the grahas, they are active energies that, as the name says, graha, they take a hold of us. They're energies that grasp us, that, hold on to us and work through us. And so even the more feminine grahas, like the moon, are depicted as masculine. So in Vedic mythology, Chandra, the moon, is a very beautiful young man, like a prince. He's radiant and he's charming and he's absolutely full of life, and he's really beautiful as well. He's, glowing light. And he was so beautiful that the great sage Daksha who was in Vedic mythology the creator, the father, or the patriarchal leader, or the enforcer of cosmic order. He's often in the stories depicted as quite rigid, really, and patriarchal. And he had 27 daughters, and those were the Nakshatras. And because the moon was so beautiful, Daksha wanted him to be married to his 27 daughters, and also therefore bind the moon to karma and time, because that's what, he was the guide of cosmic law and order. And he wanted to have this beautiful luminous moon tied to his realm. And so he gave his 27 daughters in marriage to Chandra. And each of these 27 wives had her very own personality and her own rhythm and story and gifts. And Chandra did get married to them, and he promised to treat them all with equality and with love and devotion. But as it is in any love story, it didn't work out like that, because as time passed, Chandra became especially enchanted with one of them, and that was Rohini. She's called the Red Star because she was really sensual, and she was graceful and artistic, and she was very bright as well. She was the brightest of them all. And the moon fell in love with her, and he spent most of his time with her and neglected all the other stars, all the other nakshatras. And the other wives felt hurt and neglected and abandoned, and so they went to their father Daksha and complained. And Daksha was quite furious about it and put a curse onto Chandra. And he put a curse on him that would take away his beauty. So he said, since you refuse to honor your duties, you'll lose your beauty, you'll lose your radiance, and you shall wane each day. You will be less and less, and darkness will come over you until you disappear. And and so Chandra, the moon, started to disappear every day a little bit. Every day a small slice was less of him, and there was less and less light, and the world in the night grew darker and darker and colder, so that all the other gods were involved, and they went to Daksha and asked him and begged him, can you not lift this curse, please? Because without the moon, there's, the tides are thrown off balance, and the harvest, and also the minds of people, of humans, and of all other beings, because Chandra is the mind and emotions. And if the moon is growing darker and darker, then also the minds of humanity, of humans, will grow darker and darker, and the emotions will grow darker. And so they begged Daksha to lift the curse, but he wouldn't. And in fact, he couldn't either, because once a curse is spoken out, then it can't really be lifted. It can only be changed. And eventually, Shiva intervened. He came and he said, okay, I will deal with this. And so he took Chandra on his head. So this is why, there's a picture of Shiva often with a crescent moon on his head. And through that, he partly restored his light. But the curse could not be undone completely, and that's why the moon still wanes but then waxes again. So this is Chandra's doing to not lift the curse, but to soften it. And so ever since that day, Chandra, he waxes and wanes, and his light is always restored again, but he also always loses it again. But also since that time, he promised to not neglect the wives, and so he traveled through all of the Nakshatras equally. So he's about each day and night he is with one of the Nakshatras, but still Rohini is his favorite wife. So whenever the moon is in Rohini, that's where he feels most comfortable. And this story beautifully depicts the moon and his emotional nature, and the importance also of the brightness of the moon for the world and for human minds, and the fluctuating moon of being, sometimes the moon is dark and sometimes the moon is bright. And also because these nakshatras, these lunar constellations, are really strongly tied to the moon. The moon is greatly influenced by them. So there are 27 of them, and each of them has their own little story and their own personality. They all have a ruling planet, a ruling graha. They all have a deity connected to it. They all have a symbol. They all have a story, and they all also have a hidden power that they can give us through the moon into our minds. It's like planting a seed into the mind, a hidden power, unlocking a power in our minds that can be used in our daily life. And I would like to start with the very first of the nakshatras, Ashwini Nakshatra, the spark of the beginning. So when the moon moves into this nakshatra, into Ashwini, then something really begins to stir, because this is the very first, this is the energy of the first as well. And it's very subtle, but if you really pay attention, then you can feel it. I've done this before, and I really recommend this as a practice. If you're really interested in the nakshatras and understanding the nakshatras, then maybe go day by day and watch which nakshatra is the moon in today, and how do you really feel, and what comes up, and how does the day go by, and what energy are you in. And this is a really good way to connect to the nakshatras through personal experience. And Ashwini is something that is a sense of motion. It's a quickening. There's a quick energy to it. It's like you take the first breath after you wake up in the morning, or it's maybe something sudden, a sudden spark of inspiration before you find any words. And Ashwini is, it's the very first of the 27 nakshatras, where everything begins. The zodiac, the soul's journey through time, the unfolding of karma. It's really the impulse that starts it all, like the first heartbeat. And it's not slow, it's not careful or cautious, it's fast, and it's bright, and it's really instinctual and alive. This energy, it doesn't wait until you're ready, and doesn't need like a 5-year plan or something like that to perfect clarity. It arrives like a galloping horse. And that is exactly what it is. It's the Ashwini Kumaras are the deities that rule it, and they are the divine twins with horse heads, and they're born from light and shadow. So this is the story of the Ashwini Kumaras. You might know the story because it's also the story of Surya, the sun, and it's also connected to the story of Saturn or Shani. So there was long ago, the gods, particularly the sun or Surya, was there, and he burned so brightly that even his own wife couldn't bear to be near him anymore. He was just too hot. And his wife's name was Sanjana, and she was really gentle and subtle. She was like a cloud. And she loved her husband, but his radiance was just sometimes too much for her. So one day she left. She needed a break. She created a shadow version of herself and called her Chaya and left her in her stead to fulfill her duties as a wife. And she herself, she went down to earth and she took the form of a horse, of a mare. And she was hiding there in the forest. And she had a great time galloping and running around in the forests. And in the meantime, Chaya had gotten pregnant and had a child, and this was Shani or Saturn, but this story now is not about Shani, but it's about how Surya noticed, and in some stories say he never noticed, but he did actually notice that his real wife was missing, that this was not his real wife, this was her shadow. And he was a little bit heartbroken even, and he started searching for her. And he did find her in the woods, in the forests of the earth, in her horse form. But he didn't say anything. He didn't, show him to her. He didn't force her to come back or anything. And instead, he took the form of a horse himself, of a stallion. And so he went and chased after her, and they frolicked and had a lovely time. And out of their union, they had twins. And that was the Ashwini Kumaras. And these twins, they were deities. They were born, they were sons of Surya, of the sun. So they had glowing body and they were wild. And, they were also born of passion and animal instinct. And they had a very special gift. They could heal. And they were like horses are. They were wild and they were fast and quick and they were galloping. And so whenever someone was suffering, they went really quickly and healed them. And they had a special affinity with eyes. So whenever someone was blind, they could heal them. They could also revive people from the dead, and they could restore their youth and their health at any time. But there was something else about them. They were outsiders. Because of their unusual story, they weren't born among the gods. They were born as horses, from their parents were horses, and they were born in while their mother was in hiding, and so they were outsiders, and they were denied their place at their, among the gods, at the sacred rituals they did. The gods always had these rituals, and they drank this sacred nectar, the soma nectar, and they were denied that. But they still were there. They still continued to heal and to serve completely unconditionally. And until at some stage, it's a little bit like the story of Shani as well. He just continued to serve and continued to bear everything. And also these horses, they never complained, and they just continued to do their work until finally nobody could deny anymore how valuable they were. So finally the gods relented, and they were granted their place among the gods. And so this story contains really a lot that, that is important for anyone who has moon in Ashwini Nakshatra, or really any planet in Ashwini Nakshatra. But the moon, of course, is particularly important in the Nakshatras. So for one, we have the theme of speed and also instinctual healing. Also, Ashwini, like I said, every nakshatra is ruled by a planet, by a graha, and Ashwini, being the first one, always the first one, is ruled by Ketu, the south node of the moon. And this deals with karmic memory and with spiritual wisdom. So where do we come from? And, the Ashwini Kumaras, they bring healing that is beyond any intellect. It just comes. They just come and they heal, sometimes even unexpectedly. And it doesn't require any explanation. It's soul level healing, and it's remembering. And it's something that moves straight into the nervous system, into the energy body, the subtle body. And people with a strong Ashwini placement, so be it the moon in Ashwini or another important planet in Ashwini, they often feel drawn to healing work, but maybe not necessarily conventional healing. Maybe it's alternative healing practices or something other than the conventional way. And they just have it as well. They often have an energy or a gift that allows them to heal just by being there. Healing is something anyway that, it's something that we do by ourselves. Like we all have the gift to heal ourselves. It's just that we often need permission. We need to allow ourselves to heal. It's a little bit like when we take a placebo, because when we take a placebo, then we allow ourselves to heal ourselves. The placebo has really nothing to do with it, but it allows us, it opens something up in us, and it allows us to heal ourselves. And it's the way with Ashwini Nakshatra people. They have the inner ability to just heal themselves, and even their presence can create an atmosphere where others can open up toward that healing energy and allow themselves to heal. So that's one thing about Nakshatra and Ashwini Nakshatra people. But another thing is also the spark of beginnings and initiations. So this is the very first nakshatra, and it's Ketu ruled, and so it is about emerging. It's about initiating, starting something, moving something, getting things moving. It's a little bit almost childlike and enthusiastic and really full of potential. And also a little bit restless. So Ashwini energy can be quite restless, and sometimes it can be a little bit too restless, or maybe those the people that like to start things but then don't finish them because when the excitement fades, then they jump to the next new thing because they just like beginnings. They like the initiation of things, the inspirations, but maybe not so much following through. So they need to sometimes maybe learn to stay with something. But of course, that depends completely on many other things in the chart. And then the other thing is the outsider status and the kind of unconventional origins. Because like the Ashwini Kumaras were not born from a traditional union. They were born, in the in as refugees almost, or the mother was a refugee, or she was hiding out, and even the father Surya didn't show himself. So they were born of an animal form of the gods, and they were born of shadow and light, and outside of any rules. So, and also they weren't accepted at first for a long time. So the Ashwini's archetype is really also an outsider, an unconventional person, an unconventional healer, one that doesn't quite fit, but at the same time carries a lot of medicine. And yeah, Ashwini people are like that. They can feel like they don't belong, or they don't belong to conventional systems. They have a healing gift, but it's maybe harder to define, and it's maybe a gift that is hard to prove. So they can feel a little bit, not accepted by the conventional medicine, for example. But over time, just like in the story, their impact can speak for itself. They will eventually be accepted. They just might have to go a completely different way, because just like in the story, it takes a long time, and they just do their thing without expecting anything. And over time, the story speaks for itself. And they are eventually accepted by the gods, but after a long time. And the other thing about Ashwini is their sacred wildness. The horse symbol is, it symbolizes instinct and freedom and emotional intelligence, and speed as well. So these are all important aspects also of Ashwini. So they do need their freedom. They do need to follow their instincts. They need to use their intuition and emotional guidance, because horses don't think the way humans do. They, not in a logical way, they feel and they sense, and also they move with the herd, and they sense danger and subtle changes and shifts in energy very easily. That horses are used in therapy a lot these days, and that's for good reason. So because they are so they can pick up energy shifts and energy changes very easily, and maybe that is also their healing gift that they have. And they're not that easy to tame either. Even when they are, trained, they always carry something wild in them. That's why they often are a symbol of freedom and wildness, and a refusal to be tied in and boxed in. And so Ashwini people also need a lot of space and motion and meaning, and they can feel trapped in rigid structures. But they, like I said, have a lot of strong medicine, and that comes most of all when they honor their need for freedom and for movement as well. So on all levels, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And in the story, from the story we know that despite of their outsider status, despite of them being excluded from everything, they kept serving. They didn't stop to ask for anything. They just kept serving, and that is a core trait of Ashwini people as well. They do what is needed just because it's right, not because they need recognition or something, but because the soul tells them to. And that is really important part of Ashwini. So how can we work with that now with Ashwini? energies consciously. So you can look at all these things and look, for example, at intuition and first impulse, because Ashwini teaches us to move with the initial spark. So the idea, the first idea you got about something, real intuitive, yes, that you set it to something, that is right. That is what you need to follow and see where it leads you to. So just trusting the first impulse and beginning something, anything. It doesn't have to be big, but any new thing that you begin will activate that nakshatra. So if you start any creative project or begin something new, start a conversation that you've been putting off maybe, or something else. Ashwini loves the energy of beginnings, and so just begin things. And also the horse's animal instinct is talking through the body as well. So the body is really important too. So whatever that is, dancing, walking a lot, shaking meditation, breathing, instinctual or intuitive movement. So letting the body express what the mind couldn't express maybe. And then also listen to your soul memory. So what is it that you already know without knowing that you know it? What are you here to do that no one trained you for? So those inner callings, to allow yourself to listen to them. Because often we have it in mind, we have to fit in, we have to be acknowledged by the outside world, by the world of medicine or whatever system we happen to work in. But actually trusting the inner instinct, that thing that, it will has been there all along, and trusting it and letting it speak as well, and honor that it's there, honor the healing gifts that we already have. And you might not call yourself a healer, but if you carry Ashwini energy, then the chances are that you do bring some healing energy. You do bring whatever it is, relief, insight, or even just a calm energy to others in a way that feels good to them. So start valuing that. That's a good thing. And also reclaiming the wildness. So you could spend time with actual horses if you can, or at least, time in nature, somewhere where you can feel wild and untamed, and, just let that part of you be and run, and let it be your medicine. So, that's pretty much Ashwini energy. If you're moving through Ashwini moon, if you have something in Ashwini yourself, so you can ask yourself all of this. What is ready to begin at this very moment? Or what healing wants to come right now? Or also, what are you being called to do, even if it might not make sense, but what is your inner calling? And trust that. And, maybe journal about it or work with that, but try to trust it. That's what the Ashwini Kumaras ask you for. All right, that was it. That was the first of the Nakshatras. I have all the plans to do the others as well. And thank you for listening, and bye for now. You were listening to a podcast by the Little School of Happiness. For more information, please go to sandrahayes.eu, or if you are in Germany, sandrahayes.de.